Hello! Today is September 3rd, and you are listening to I Think You Think, a podcast that puts a new spin on debate and discussion. I'm Justin, and on the other side of my computer screen is James.
Howdy, folks.
And Sequoia.
Hi.
And as you can tell, the area behind me is different than normal. My cross is not there, and other things are not normal. It's because I am actually on vacation. But not from podcasting, just from, my normal job that pays the bills. And I am in a complete other time zone, a whole 1 hour ahead of you guys. I am in the future, and everything is good.
Nice.
All right.
I was really worried.
You should be, actually. I am on my way, as I have been saying, to visit my family in Ohio, and we are currently staying at a hotel in southern Ohio, just a hop, skip, and jump away from the Ohio-Kentucky border. We actually had to drive through Kentucky. I know, I was coming from Illinois down through Indiana. We jumped through Kentucky and then back up into Ohio to the place that we're going to. But anyway, so I Think You Think is a podcast that focuses on what we, your hosts, think, but also what you think. Too many times we spend debates and discussions talking past one another and not enough time trying to learn and understand why someone thinks what they think. This is what makes I Think You Think different, because we are focused on why people think the way that they do and why we think the way that we do. James, Sequoia, and I believe that the forum of ideas should be open to everyone, and everyone should have the opportunity to challenge and be challenged by ideas. We're not here to pass judgment, but merely discuss ideas and topics. This podcast, first and foremost, is a conversation between us and hopefully you. Feel free to email us. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and at the Chicago Now blogs, which I need to really update. But the links for all of these can be found in the underbar of the video. I Think You Think is produced by StolenArts Productions and is recorded live at Fisher International Studios, except we are not recording live at Fisher International Studios. We are recording live in Seaman, Ohio. So, I'm so juvenile. So, just so you know, it's good in Seaman, Ohio.
You didn't even attempt to avoid that joke.
No, not at all. And we are talking, and as a perfect transition, we're talking about Ancient Aliens this week. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what has been eating up our time. And I talked a little bit about I'm on vacation and such like. So, James, what do you got going on?
Besides really disliking my job over the last week, on my way home from my job today, picked up Diablo 3. And I have tomorrow off, so although it hasn't taken up a lot of my time yet, it will be soon. In fact, immediately after this podcast, it will be taking up some of my time. I'm going to try not to play it during the podcast, but I promise nothing.
So we'll have a review from you on that probably at the end of this month during the pop culture bit.
If we don't start reviewing it during this podcast. This part's awesome. Oh, sweet. I killed it. Yep. Maybe.
Sequoia.
I actually just watched through the entire season of New Girl with Zoe Deschanel this last week, which I think is why I got my spiffy new bangs here. They were the inspiration. No, but I've been mostly doing homework and work and blah, blah, blah. But what little free time I've had has been devoted to New Girl, though there's only one season on Netflix, which I find really bothersome. So, Netflix needs to get on that.
Man, Sequoia, you really need to hang out with my wife, because you watch all the same shows she does. I'll bet you guys would get along splendidly. So, moving on right into Ancient Aliens. So this is a topic that we kind of came up with just a few days ago, and I didn't look anything up because my wife watches a lot of the Ancient Aliens kind of shows. There's an actual hypothesis. It's like paleo. extraterrestrial, I don't know, something like that hypothesis that basically states that in the relatively recent past, when you're talking about the whole, you know, 4.5 billion year time frame of the planet Earth, in the relative recent past, that aliens have visited this planet and have interacted with humanity in various ways. And the TV show, which I think is on History Channel, it talks about some of the things that they consider evidence of these things taking place. So my first position is that I think it's all bullshit, but I'm welcome to listen to other people's ideas. So yeah, there you go.
That's the I think you think theory right there. That's in action.
Right there. Yeah.
That's. If we ever have a TV commercial, I use that line.
I think it's bullshit, but whatever.
Well, for me, I think it's entertaining television, but I think, this is probably not a good subject because I think I agree with you, Justin. Like, it's such, like, they fill in so many of the blanks, you know what I mean? Like, they fill in so much of it to make it be like, to make it try to seem like it's aliens by, like, it's kind of silly. It's entertaining. It's good television, which usually means it's probably BS. But it's just, have aliens been visiting us forever and told us to build pyramids and, put the final ingredient into, like, starting life or the final push into our evolution or blah, 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 or whatever other many weird philosophies there are about alien visits. Probably not. Probably not. That probably didn't happen. But maybe it did. Maybe it did. And if so, I'm guessing that the TV show probably got it completely wrong. And that's not at all how it happened. So I'm here hoping that Sequoia's got an entirely different view on this.
Not really. Here's the thing, though, and here's what I think is really interesting about the whole ancient alien thing. Like, first of all, the show started out as just a 1 hour and a half documentary, and then it was so popular that they ended up turning it into an actual television series. But when I first saw the documentary, I thought, oh, this is a really interesting take. I had never thought of that before. That's interesting. I didn't really think much of it beyond it being interesting. But as the show has gotten bigger and I've talked to more people, it's really interesting to me that a lot of people who I know, who their whole lives have been atheist and not believed in God, are using the same arguments for ancient aliens that typically religious people use for God. Like how you were saying, they fill in the gaps. Anywhere there's a gap, oh, it must be aliens. It's no different than the whole phrase that God lives in the gaps, which is what creationists believe. So it's really interesting to me how I think for a lot of people it's just another brand of religion that I think is sort of cropping up. The whole reason that I wanted to talk about it was because I saw this hilarious graphic that's been going around the internet, and it was talking about how in the show they point out that in 3 different locations, the Aztec, and then in Egypt, and then one other place there's
Indonesia maybe.
Yeah, there's the pyramids that are built in the staggered form, and it was they're built exactly the same, and it's supposed to be this big question of aliens must have given them this knowledge, and somebody wrote underneath of it all this means is that this is a really good way to pile up rocks in a way that they won't fall down for a really long time. And I thought that was such an ingenious debunking of it. I guess my whole argument against that whole thinking is it has a lot to do with the repetition in different cultures. But how many times have you had an idea or a thought and then like you go online and like all of a sudden somebody posts exactly what your thought was on that, and you were like, hey, I thought of that first, motherfucker. Like, oh, sorry, but like, but like we all like, there's not that many original thoughts. Like, it's not that far of a stretch to think that 3 different cultures would come up with the same way of piling up rocks.
Right.
Yeah, the term is a step pyramid, and it was actually a very early design that the Egyptians used. Some of their first pyramids were step pyramids, and then later on in their design, as their technique advanced, because they were one of the premier pyramid builders of human cultures, and they were the ones who perfected more of that, the one that you typically think of.
Right.
And there are examples where they failed, where they started like this and then the top actually collapsed in, and these are I don't remember what they call them, but they basically they have this nice smooth slope to them, and then they just kind of bend over at the top because the top collapsed, because bad design. And the only thing you see left, in Mayan culture, in the Egyptian and the other culture, and are the examples that have survived thousands of years. And so, yes, it's going to be the best design, because some guy who said, "Yeah, well, if we started with something really small and built out from there, it's going to be beautiful and wonderful." And you don't see reverse upside down pyramids because, one, it won't stand up, and two, because it doesn't stand up, it's not going to last thousands of years. So you have examples of things that last a long time, and the things, a pyramid, a triangular shape, is one of the strongest geometrical patterns that exist. And so, if not the strongest, I mean, even the bridges we build nowadays is based on that same triangular geometric pattern. And so it's more of the case of the strongest design wins out, and so that's why we have examples of them from long ago. I have somebody who wants to make a cameo. Go ahead, you can make your cameo. Oh, you're just watching. I'm sorry. I made a mistake there.
Uh-oh. It's probably aliens. It's not your fault.
It was. Now, James, you were talking about, I know Sequoia, that meme you're talking about. I saw that one myself.
Funny.
It is hilarious. You were talking about the way that they make their cases for things, and you're right. Basically, they say, okay, here's a fact. This exists. These types of things or whatever, and then they start making a line of not even inquiry. They actually provide evidence for other things, and then eventually they get to a point where they're just like, well, we don't really have an explanation for why this is like this. However, if you think about it, it sort of looks like this other thing. And so because they look together like they're the same, we are just going to make this leap of, crappy logic in which we say, well, they obviously are related. It's impossible that a human brain or people, because they lived thousands of years ago, couldn't imagine something, and it be nothing more than a story. I mean, because obviously there's stories and pictures and paintings of unicorns, so obviously unicorns used to exist, right?
What do you mean used to?
I have a quadricorn.
Oh.
Haven't you seen the commercial?
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, ancient aliens. But, I mean, you said it's good entertainment, but I hate shows like that. Like, I can't watch those ghost shows. I can't, because the whole time I'm just thinking, wow, crappy science. I'd rather watch something like Cosmos.
Well, it depends on how seriously you take it. That's, you have to, I don't remember where it was I heard the quote, but they were talking basically about reality television shows about as far away from reality as you can ever get. And those shows fall under the reality television show kind of entertainment programming, the Ghost Hunter shows and the Agent Aliens, and there's a whole slew of them now, supernatural, if you will, kind of stuff.
Are you trying to tell me that Jersey Shore isn't a documentary? I was pretty sure that's how everybody in Jersey acts.
It's a documentary on how easily they can get a whole bunch of dumb people to watch the same show. I don't know. I've never seen it. I can't really talk crap about Jersey Shore. I've never seen the show. It just seems like it's ridiculous to me. It falls right in that like niche of what I consider to be the worst programming on television. Just that kind of like, let's take these slightly famous, or not famous, these slightly whatever people, and just put them in front of the camera, and then we'll have producers like make it all very drama-like, and then we'll see if we can make millions, and then these people will be famous and disappoint everybody. This will be exciting. Nice. Let's do that again. But Ancient Aliens, yeah, the filling in the gaps, you know, and that's a lot what it is, you know. And I was when I was thinking about this when I was driving home from work today. It is. I had the same thought that you were talking about, Sequoia. Like it's very much you know. It's like people that believe in a religion sometimes, where, you know, it's not the evidence that it's not like true solid evidence that makes people believe in it. It's that, you know, well, there were squares drawn in this culture, and then on the other side of the planet, they drew squares too. Do you think that aliens gave them the squares? Maybe aliens gave them the squares. Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know, like they're deciding that that must be the answer. Not that like two different cultures could come up with a square, just an example, on their own. You know, it had to be some other force. And it led me to another thought, that in a way, if you think about it, since we are sentient, and any deity would be sentient, technically, a deity would be an alien to us.
Yes.
That's a whole other, that's
well,
a whole other podcast.
No, it's kind of true, though. I mean, and I think that in a lot of ways, like, people who are really believing in all this ancient alien stuff, like, it is the same thing as believing in a religion or a god. And I think honestly, more than anything that bothers me about it is I feel like it completely, like, dismisses the ability of human ingenuity. Like, I think it, like, makes it seem like we couldn't have come up with this stuff on our own. Like, don't get me, like, Egypt was far more advanced than, I mean, it was, the things that they had were incredible. Like, did you know that ancient Egypt actually had tampons? Like, that's incredible. That's incredible. Like, but to just discount and be like, oh, aliens gave them the knowledge to do it. Or to think that it would be completely impossible for, like, you know, several different highly intelligent civilizations to not be able to come up with a good way to build a freaking structure. Like, you know, it had to have been intelligence given to them because they never could have come up with it on their own. Like, I think that's really, like, discounting a lot of what we're capable of. Like, we all have similar thoughts.
Yeah, not to mention that, I mean, there really is only...
You both are talking at the exact same time.
I was just saying that I mean, it's not like there's only so many different ways that you can build something. I mean, if you want to go more than, I don't know, 10 or 15 feet high, you have to do certain things. So,
especially if you're talking about the materials they had way back then and the longevity of those buildings.
Right. And what those buildings represented. I mean, they were, you know, from a religious and cultural aspect. I do, however, think it's really interesting that the pinnacle of technological advances that Sequoia has really kind of hit on is that the Egyptians had tampons, and that, like, it's not like they had supercomputers; they had tampons.
Hey,
like, we wanted a woman's view in this podcast, so that's it.
No, do you not realize how mind-blowing that is? Like, we didn't even have tampons, like modern civilization, until pretty recently.
Okay,
like,
I don't know if you guys heard this, but my wife just yelled at me and said, "We didn't have tampons until 1940," and here comes Sequoia with basically the exact same line. I swear, you two need to hang out. Get yelled at from both sides.
I'm saying.
Well, there is some evidence to suggest that some of the technological advances that they had, at least blueprints for in the Alexandria Library, which isn't Egyptian, but took place a long time ago, are things like steam engines and I mean, you know, those types of ideas that we didn't have until the 19th century. Um, and yeah, so I mean, I do find it really irritating when they're like, oh man, the stuff that they build back then, it lines up exactly on a north-south and trajectory, and that only during certain times of the year the sun shines through things and only lights up this one tiny little niche, and they must have had computers to figure out how to do this. It couldn't possibly be like the powers of observation and a lot of like just collecting data. I mean, all you got to do is just have somebody do it. We don't, because we're lazy, or you know, we have these computers to take care of a lot of this stuff for us. You don't need to know advanced mathematics, but if you, or anything like that.
And the penalties for failing, depending on the culture and the leader that's having you build whatever building, are pretty harsh. So you'll double check your numbers, I'm sure. If you don't get it right, like you, your family, and anyone who's ever smiled at you is going to get burned alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, astrology was really important to those people. I mean, they determined their omens, their futures. I mean, the past. I mean, they were observing the skies constantly. I mean, for them to be able to line that kind of stuff up, it seems like it would be something inevitable and not altogether that difficult for some of their most educated people with vast amounts of data that has been collected.
Well, and too, I mean, a lot of like the information that we have left is based on what lasted. So, I mean, obviously, like if there is a good way to build something, or you know, something that worked that all three cultures found out and it lasted this long, then we know now that those things last. Like, I'm sure that there were tons of ideas that all three of them came up with that were vastly different that didn't work out because they were stupid. Like, hopefully, you know, thousands of years from now, they won't be remembering MySpace. You know, like that sort of thing, you know, because I mean, if you think about it, like thousands of years from now, are they going to be looking back and be like, they couldn't have possibly come up with all this advanced technology without the help of ancient aliens? Like, obviously, we just have made advances as humans do.
Well, I mean, there was Roswell. Oh man, we did it again.
It really scares me. Like, it makes me skittish.
Ah! But sorry, James. I took it last time. You go ahead this time.
For our era, yes. And like in time here, there's much more documentation as far as how we've come across our technology and how it's developed over time. You know. Depending on what would survive, you know how far into the future we are. There's a lot of just documentation that is more likely to last than anything that was happening back then. But still, I mean, there are people today that say we wouldn't have like CDs and like a lot of the modern technology, smartphones and stuff we had if it wasn't for, you know, us reverse engineering the UFO that crashed in Roswell or whatever. So, you know, if that came to light and that turned out to be true, I wouldn't be completely surprised that we would, you know, steal the ideas from another culture and be able to do that. Because we have had some, you know, significant leaps in technology, but also we're, you know, inventive and intelligent people, and there's a lot of us on the planet, so our ability to actually come up with those things on our own is completely feasible. So, I don't know. I was just, you know, it's all kind of odd.
Well, and I mean, it's not even like I'm discounting the idea that there is alien life. Like, I guess I think that in a universe so vast, I find it very sort of like myopic to think that we are the only living creatures out there. But did they come to Earth and bestow their grand knowledge upon us and then leave and like watch us play like some giant game of The Sims? Probably not. Like, that's, you know, like why? It just seems kind of silly.
Like planets are like the Xbox 1 million. You
Right, like is this gonna be like when you put a bunch of pinball machines into like a house in The Sims and trap them and watch, see how long it takes them to figure their way out? Like is that where they just like, here we're gonna show you how to build this cool thing, go play, and we're gonna watch. Like that's, I mean, I don't think that that would be the reality if aliens have come here.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think it is more difficult to conceive the ability to travel that far through space, given our technology and what we feel we know is possible, than the possibility that there's actually other life out there. And let's just step up other intelligent life, because that's more, I think what we're really talking about. Because there's so many planets and so many that they discover them all the time. The Goldilocks planets, that's in like kind of that right spot away from a star, to being able to support life as we recognize it, or as like we believe it can develop. But it's that ability to actually travel, through space as far as you would, that is the big jump in logic.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked very briefly, I think, about this in the past, James, in regards to life. In the Carl Sagan book, Contact, also in the movie, they had mentioned there's a character that says if the universe, if there isn't life out there elsewhere in the universe, it seems like a whole lot of wasted space. And whenever I get into discussions with people about life elsewhere in the universe, I really want them to define what they mean. Like, would you consider single-celled organisms living near vents, in the crust of the planet that's living off of the heat and molten, chemicals that are coming up from the depths? I mean, do you consider that life, or are you talking about sentient life that is something more akin to what we have become? Because one is almost for basically guaranteed that it seems to be very, very common. Not at the very least, it exists. We know it exists here. But I mean, it's much easier for that type of very simple life to take hold and at least exist for a few thousand, a few million, a few billion years than it is for something as complex as we. I had been watching a TED talk recently about how incredibly complex things can come about from chaos, which our universe is, basically full of all of these chaotic things. But just because of some of the simplest, four basic things within our universe, how they interact with each other, gravity, electromagnetism, the weak and the strong nuclear force, they kind of lend themselves to creating or a byproduct being what happens in our universe, which then can very often lead to some sort of life. But the more complex something becomes, the more difficult it is to get to that point, and the more tenuous its position is. Very small changes can affect incredibly complex systems. So, yeah, that was quite a tangent just to say I think that it's very likely that life other than on this planet exists. And I will be super excited if they find it in our own solar system, because if they can find it again in our own solar system, then it means that life is just a mass out there in the universe.
And I think if you if you find microscopic single-celled organisms, I think logic says at that point that there has to be other intelligent life out there, because it's going to take that first, like, once that one thing can happen, there's so many planets out there that, we believe at least could support life, that like infinite amount of possible locations is eventually going to spawn some other sentient life.
I just think with how like vast the universe is and how little of it we actually like can reach at this point, I think it would be completely ridiculous to think that we are the only sentient beings out there. But I think we
Kinda.
also have to like, huh?
I was gonna say it's kind of sad too to think that that would be
Yeah.
the case too.
But I think that we also like have to also keep in mind that like if we ever do find other intelligent life, it's not going to be at all probably what any of us expect. I mean, I've heard theories talking about, you know, how another form of life could live in another sort of dimension, so to speak. Like that like just basically like life outside of Earth is not going to go by any of our rules. And we only have what happens here to base it on. So what could be out there could be so completely that, I mean, it could be a color we haven't thought of, or, you know, just all these things that we have no clue of. And I think that if and when it ever does happen, it's probably going to completely like just shatter our preconceptions about a lot of things.
Well, it would instantly change everything,
Mm-hmm.
especially intelligent life. It would instantly change everything.
Well, that kind of brings me back to the idea of aliens visiting our planet. There's the kind of there's probably lots of schools of thought, but I remember watching a documentary that was hosted by crap, I can't think of his name right now.
Snooki?
No.
Yes. You watched
Yes.
that one too?
That's it. That's the one. Preeminent physicist is in a wheelchair, can't move.
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking. Thank you. Sorry, I forget names. All right. So anyway,
You're like just getting yelled at from like all directions.
yeah, possibly, yes. Well, thank you. Welcome to my life. Anyway, there was this documentary. It was a 3-part miniseries, and in one of them, he talked about if there was life that visited us, most likely it would be aggressive. Because one, I mean, just because of the way evolution sort of works, the dominant species are the ones that survive. And so if we encountered another species that was a spacefaring species, because of the vast distances we're talking about, these creatures would need vast amounts of energy. And if they came upon our planet, most likely it would be not to say, hey, you know, we'd like to show you how to cure cancer and, you know, build faster than light travel ships. It's, you have a lot of stuff that we want, and kind of you're in our way. So thanks, we're going to go ahead and take it, since we have weapons that are way better than yours, and you just are little meat sacks that we don't even really consider
A threat, yeah.
a threat to us in any regard. So
No, see, but then what's going to happen is the doctor's going to show up and save the day.
in his little blue box.
I'm just waiting for it to happen. I'm actually, like, that's why I want alien life to come to Earth, because once it happens, the doctor will show up.
Well, the 21st century is when it all changes.
Well,
and you gotta be ready.
Like, my
According to
hair is
Captain
red
Jack.
now. I'm now a ginger, so I would be the perfect companion. So, doctor, wherever you are,
At least
Hook
you
a
have a
girl up.
solid plan based in reality in case of alien invasions. I think that's important.
Yeah.
either that or I'm banking on an M. Night Shyamalan plot twist. It's one or the other.
Hopefully one of the first couple movies and nothing later. So
Justin,
is
did
it-
you suggest something different to your hair, too?
Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it? Long and flowy.
You look so much younger.
Don't you think so?
So aliens came to this planet. Okay, if they did, do you think they'd be interested in buying any jewelry online?
They probably would be, but I can't get to neither my screen share or my thing right now. So I will just mention, because, you know, probably a lot of you guys just listen to us anyway and not necessarily always watch the videos, but StravaMax.com, STRAVA Max.com, is a good jewelry site that you should check out. They've got lots of cool stuff. the young lady who made all of our fancy graphics that you can see on our Facebook page and Chicago Now blogs and Twitter and even in our The Blue thing on the bottom.
Don't make fun of me.
Which James doesn't have this week because his computer hates him or something, or Google Hangouts does.
It's being quirky.
The young lady who made all of those graphics also makes the jewelry for StravaMax.com. Check it out. You can see them on Facebook. Our I Think You Think on Facebook is actually friended to them as well, so you can kind of find it that route, or you can just, type in that little white search bar at the top and let search algorithms figure it out.
Yep, Google will find it for you.
Yes, Google is your friend. So there you go. Yes, StravaMax.com. They may come to the planet looking for jewelry. Aliens, obviously.
I think it's 50-50.
I figure it's either that or to cure cancer. And
well, and even if they just
both.
pop in for a visit, they'll need to bring something home to remind them of their trip.
Yep.
Yep. Like all of our planet's water.
Right?
Or
no,
humans.
Remember,
how to serve humans.
Well,
how to serve man.
Like the majority water,
I remember that.
You remember that movie?
I do.
Yes, that is a classic. If any of you are listening and say, "How to serve man," I don't get it. Just Google search it. It will lead you in the right direction. You should watch the movie. It's a classic.
Though for some reason that just reminds me of like Soylent Green. I don't know why.
And that is our example of a tangent.
Which we've had 2 of at least in this episode. So I think 3 or 4 more and we will reach our quota.
And then we have to end the podcast when we hit enough tangents. Which that was a tangent in itself. I think that's it. I think we're done podcasting forever now. We finally hit that point.
So we're going to move on to some articles, I think. James drops his head in shame, so I will move right on to Sequoia. Because, of course, I have articles. I'm not going to look them up really quickly.
It's okay. I looked them up in the pre-show, so it's not like I'm super on top of my game.
So, no one's going to know that.
If you guys join us in the pre-show, you can watch us all be looking for our articles that we're going to talk about.
Just like staring at the screen really intensely for like 20 minutes.
Oh, and complaining about work, which is what we do also in the pre-show.
Yes.
I think that's for the after show now. It's like pre-show is articles, after show is complaining about work.
I like to mix it up and do both.
You don't even look for articles, so no, you don't.
I find them in the post show. I guess I should flip that around.
So moving on, Sequoia.
So my first article is very, very interesting and very appropriate, I'm sure. So they recently released a state-by-state map of, basically they put together all the statistics of people's porn habits all across the country, and they found some really interesting things. Like they found out that Mississippi has one of the highest durations of like visits on a porn site. Like once they go there, they're on there the longest, followed closely by Hawaii. And the interesting thing about Hawaii is their second most searched term in Hawaii for porn is Hawaii. Like they're looking for people on island to watch, which I thought was interesting. They're the only one where Hawaii shows up in like the top 5 searched subjects.
And you did you live in Hawaii at some point?
I did. I lived there for 3 years.
Nice little hesitation between the "you used to" and the question.
I know. I was like, "Where is this going?"
Yeah.
I like.
Was there a sharp drop off? No. Or no. No. No, the reason this hesitation, because I was thinking, did she say Hawaii before, or am I totally going to be embarrassed because I just asked her and she's like, no, it's been California, you stupid idiot, and we talk like every week and you don't know anything about me.
Are there any more interesting fun facts in your article there, Sequoia?
Well, Rhode Island had the like lowest duration of visit. And they also broke it down into, like, again, like the most searched terms. I won't get into most of them, but what I thought was really interesting was a couple of them were stuff like smoking was one of them. I don't know why. And in Nevada, it's like one particular porn star is like the number one most searched term, and she's not even that famous. She doesn't show up anywhere else, but somehow in Nevada, she is like it.
There's one guy on the internet all the time in Nevada.
Just
It's
all
probably
the
what
time.
it is. He's just obsessed.
Well, it's
Super
Nevada,
stalker.
so, but they also break it down by like who visits like the most and who's on the longest, and the South is sort of like the most, as well as like California, Nevada, a little bit, like the Southwest, and then it just sort of drops off the farther north you get, even though Michigan's kind of up there too.
Well, I mean,
I
it's
know.
Michigan. What else do you really do up there?
See, I would have thought that like, places like, Idaho would have had a higher one,
What
but
else
I
are they
guess
going
not.
to do? Like, it's potatoes and corn. That's all Idaho does, right?
That's true.
We just lost every person who. No, I don't think we have any Idaho listeners. We're good.
Not yet. Well, definitely not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But, I want to major in, an area that has a lot to do with human sexuality, so I find all that very interesting. So, I thought it was kind of cool. Funny,
excellent.
entertaining.
Horribly
Awkward.
awkward.
Yeah, it's so awkward for everybody. It's not awkward for me, but I thought it was really funny. So,
I just think you should list the top 5 things, but you're not going to do that, so we'll listen to go.
I
Maybe
don't
in
think
the
that would be
post-show.
appropriate.
Maybe in the
Yeah,
post
in the
show.
post show. In the post show, I will tell you also like what is most prolific here in Illinois.
Awesome.
You can't do your
Because I
I
find it really
look
funny.
forward to that.
Okay, well,
Quick,
that's for the
everyone,
podcast, guys.
That's it. We are done. 18 minutes early.
Yeah. We're off the air, Sequoia.
Go ahead. I've stopped it, I swear. No,
Okay, so
I'm
you
anyway.
trying
have
to
an
be
article,
appropriate.
Justin?
I do, and I do have to say that in full disclosure, I work for a company that has a pharmacy, and this article is about vaccines and vaccinations. I work for a company that has a pharmacy, and every year this time we do push flu shots big time. So. It's one of the reasons why I was looking it up, not because I'm like, hey, come to my store and get your flu shot, but just because I am in favor of vaccinations and vaccinating yourselves and your children and all such things.
Strangers, if you have the
Strangers, random people just walk around with a hypodermic needle and plunge it into their neck. Who cares if it, as we learned from homeopathy, you can just get some water and it's all good. I'm sure it's got memory for all the good stuff and not any of the bad. Anyway, so I found this article about that there are some better flu vaccines that are on the horizon. Like they're coming up with new and better ways that they're trying to get the correct vaccines out every year, because most people aren't aware that there is an entire field of research in vaccination that just studies specific strains of different like flu and things like that come through different areas and how they move around the world and what's going to be the most prevalent in our area at the time and how that flu strain has evolved over the last year so that they can get the right vaccines out to people. So it's interesting to see these people that do this type of thing and have to get this information out. And I don't want to get too much into there's people who are vaccination and everything like that. I just want to more say, hey, make sure you guys get your flu vaccines. Most retailers are offering them at this point, and so yes, there you go.
I will actually say that I've never had a flu shot.
Me either.
My mom was really against getting flu shots growing up, and I just happened to never get one after I moved out of my parents' house years ago. And I rarely get the flu, which is why I don't really see much of a point in getting the flu shot. I'm
So
not
I
against
would say,
vaccines in general, but
have you ever heard of the term of herd immunity?
yes.
Okay, so you know what it is.
Vaguely, yes.
Okay, so basically the way herd immunity works is if you get a large enough population or of the herd vaccinated against certain diseases, that it insulates other members of the herd who either cannot get vaccinations or refuse to get vaccinations or just decide that they don't need vaccinations because they've never gotten sick. And if you get a high enough percentage, which our country does a pretty good job of getting that high enough, it helps to insulate people like those who are under 6 months old, those who are too sick or too old to get vaccinations, and those who refuse or think that they shouldn't get vaccinations from getting sick.
I feel like you're calling me
saying,
out very subtly.
No.
I don't
what
think
he's
it's subtle at
saying
all.
is he is trying to convince other people to get the vaccination because he's afraid of needles and doesn't want to get one himself.
Well, I actually, luckily, the company that I work for provides me a vaccination for free. And then my insurance covers vaccinations for all the members of my family is covered 100%, and most insurances cover vaccinations, especially the flu vaccination, among others, 100%.
It's because they love preventative medicine.
Correct, because it's less expensive to provide you with a $25 vaccination than it is to admit you to the hospital because you've had complications from getting the flu. Did you know that in the United States alone, on average, 36,000 people a year die from complications arising from the flu?
I would love to know the age breakdown on that.
It is typically very young, under 2, and those over 65. Also, people who already have compromised immune systems.
Yeah.
Typically, the people in our age bracket who do not have compromised immune systems will not die from complications from the flu or from the flu. It is other people. But like I said, in full disclosure, I do work for a company that does that. That does flu shots, but I do
help
think
pay
that
Justin's bills.
Yep.
Get a flu shot.
Get a flu shot. But I'm not even going to tell you. Well, some of you probably worked it out where I work, but I'm not even saying that you have to go to the same company that I work for.
Arby's.
I'm just saying Arby's.
Yep. Arby's.
We give flu shots at Arby's. I would like a roast beef sandwich and a flu shot, please.
So, any more articles, Sequoia?
I do. I have one here that's about the 9 ways going to college affects your health, which I figured I should read, because I'm going to college now. And a lot of it had to do with, it causes stress, it causes depression, it causes social anxiety, which I thought was interesting. You're more socially anxious if you're in college because of the whole, social hierarchy that's usually present in college. I think it's probably more referring to, universities and sororities and stuff. But the one that made me laugh the most, because all the other ones say that it leads to this one thing, was binge drinking. It was talking about how 40% of all college students are usually are binge drinkers. And I thought that was kind of funny, and then it was saying in the end, but longer term it's good to go to college because you can afford health care, and people who have degrees typically have more money and more resources available to them, and they have less stress because they typically make more money. But I thought it was really funny that it was 8 of these awful things that are going to happen to you the whole time that you're in college, but don't worry, it'll get better. Very interesting article.
Another article.
I,
Long pause there.
I didn't want to say anything because James and I have been tripping over each other the whole show. So
It's just I find it awkward that you're in Ohio, and it's very weird for me. Justin, you're so far away. And
it is kind of
He misses you.
That's sweet. That's very sweet.
Hug your camera.
Oh, this is awkward.
I'm just gonna.
You missed a moment.
Sorry. Sequoia disappears.
I think she was
So-
watching the screen.
I don't want to. I'm sorry. Were we still talking about Sequoia's binge drinking? That's all I heard was binge
No,
drinking.
that was just for the pre-show. We're not supposed
okay.
to talk about that on the air.
Oh, sorry. God.
I haven't binge drunk in like 30 minutes, so.
Oh, I thought
Sounds
it was going to
just
be.
like
I haven't done it
intervention.
since the last I drank, you drink. But that was.
It definitely hasn't been since then. I'm in college now. It's okay. I'm just kidding.
Podcast has arrived.
Podcat has been hanging out behind you for a while.
Go back
I was
and forth.
actually going to think about like keeping track of. Okay, everybody should be on their third shot for
There he is,
Podcat.
in the corner, fourth shot. Anyways,
Yeah.
Justin, another article.
Yes. Sorry, I was making sure that I wasn't muted. I've been trying to mute myself because my children continue to make noise in the background. So I was like, was I muted, or can they hear me? They can't hear me. Then what's the show for?
Entertainment.
And all of a sudden,
Entertainment
Justin has an
purposes.
existential crisis.
Yeah, like why am I here? What am I doing?
What's it all for?
So, yeah, picking up on what I left off with, vaccinations, I found this great article, and no, I'm not going to try to beat you over the head with it anymore. I'm going to beat some other people over the head with vaccinations. So there was this measles outbreak that was tied to this Texas megachurch, in which, and I want to get the name of this pastor because, anything to make fun of the entire crazy flip-floppiness of them. All right, so Terry Pearsons is a senior pastor at Eagle Mountain International Church, and is Copeland's daughter. It's a church that's linked to a division of Kenneth Copeland Ministries, and this group advocates faith healing and advises people to first, this is a quote, first seek the wisdom of God and then appropriate medical attention in matters of health, according to this online statement that they got. So anyway, there was this measles outbreak at this church, and there have been 21 cases. And for those who don't know, like measles could easily go the way of smallpox if we could just get people to understand that it's a deadly disease that kills people every year, and this isn't like kills people due to complications from it. Like measles will kill people, and it's really easy to beat. Like you just get the vaccination and you're good. Like, but there are people who think that we shouldn't get vaccinations of these, and so anyway, this Terry Pearsons. So in the wake of this measles outbreak, she's urged her followers to get vaccinated, and the church itself has actually held several vaccination clinics. But previously, she had said that she had concerns between the ties between early childhood vaccines and autism, and measles vaccination is an early childhood vaccination. Now, scientists have pretty much said there is no correlation. There is no connection between autism and childhood vaccinations. From what I understand about the amount that they know about autism, I don't think that there's a lot of hypotheses about what causes autism, and very few like this we've figured out this is the cause of autism type thing. So there you go. I just thought it was hilarious.
I don't want to give the impression that I don't believe in getting vaccinated because of the whole flu shot thing. I totally believe in getting vaccinated. I've had all my shots, except for the flu shot. I've had all of them.
You can hang out with me, everyone.
Like, I'm not like, burn them alive if they get vaccines. It's so bad. Like, blah, blah. No, I totally believe in vaccinations. Like, without vaccinations, there are so many more diseases that would be running rampant now if we had not had them. And I feel like there's a lot of pushback against, like, getting vaccines. Like, just so much. And I feel like a lot of it is based on evidence that isn't necessarily, like founded. Like, I think that there's a lot of, like, founded evidence that's like, no, seriously, get vaccinated. And then there's a lot that's kind of like, no, don't do it because we have this one study done by, the people who would benefit from you not getting vaccinated that says you shouldn't get vaccinated. Sort of stuff.
Like the aliens created measles.
Now we know.
Very nicely done.
Full circle.
Bring that all back around, full circle.
We've made it through an hour.
I know, I'm kind of shocked.
We did make it through an hour.
And
I'm pretty tired because I've been driving for about 7 hours today. So
I told you, no podcasting and driving.
That would be interesting.
Oh my God! Yes. So I think we should probably wrap up because I'm tired and because it's still the beginning of my vacation and I got lots to do tomorrow.
True.
So I always do such a wonderful job of wrapping up. I want someone else to do it so that we can spread the love.
I don't think Sequoia's ever wrapped up.
I'm so bad. No, I did it once. All I said was, okay, bye, and then we ended it.
I do think that you guys should all email us. I think you guys should all email us and or comment on our Facebook page about whether or not you think Sequoia loves her new haircut or not, and or whether or not she thinks the bangs keep getting in her face. Because
I've been doing this.
This is what I've seen all night.
I know.
She has been doing this all night.
It's because it just ends.
So don't give any hints. Don't give any hints. You guys have to. Yeah, nice, James. You guys have to email us or comment on our Facebook page about whether or not you think Sequoia likes her new haircut. My daughter has come to say goodbye. Say bye-bye.
Let her wrap it up.
Nope. Sequoia's got to wrap it up.
All right, say, over to you, Sequoia. Say Sequoia.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.